Welcome to Nationalism Hour on the Think Yoruba First podcast. I am your host, Abiodun. Now, alongside me is my dynamic co-host, Oluwatosin.
That's right, Abiodun. We are here to ignite your spirit and celebrate the pride, strength, and vision of our Yoruba heritage with our esteemed president, Oladimeji Bolarinwa.
Every episode, we dive deep into the heart of Yoruba identity, culture, and progress, challenging ourselves to think Yoruba first in all we do. This is Nationalism Hour, where we uplift, inspire, and build a future rooted in our legacy.
So, get ready for bold conversations, powerful insights, and a call to action with the president of Think Yoruba First organization, Oladimeji Bolarinwa. Let's make history together. Oòduà á gbè wá o.
The topic today is Nigeria is not a melting pot. Is Nigeria a melting pot? What is the definition of Nigeria? If you look at Nigeria, the different ethnic nationalities within Nigeria, they have a different definition of Nigeria. And it's unfortunate that this has persisted for the past 100 years. And despite this reality, when some people tried to use the coup d'etat of 1966 or use the politics of the First Republic to try to force and change the definition of Nigeria, they created a political atmosphere that led to killings, that led to destruction, that led to civil war, that led to the loss of lives of 1 million people. But despite this destruction, we've also seen that after this destruction, the Igbos, to be specific, who have been one of the biggest proponents of a melting pot Nigeria, have learned zero lessons. And they are still the ones, if they are not asking for state of origin to be destroyed, or trying to control the politics of other people outside their region, they are still the ones telling people that we need to be detribalized before Nigeria can work. Even though the definition of Nigeria, the fundamentals of Nigeria asserts that Nigeria is not a melting pot. It is a conglomeration of different ethnic nations and different civilizations. And it is not that the Igbos do not understand the importance of ethnic identity, or the Igbos do not understand the importance of self-preservation. They understand these fundamentals. In fact, they are the most conservative group in the southern part of Nigeria. They are doing what they are doing because by promoting a melting pot Nigeria where ethnic civilizations, indigenous civilizations will be erased, is what guarantees their own economic hegemony and political hegemony in Nigeria, as stated by Zik, because that was what Zik taught them. But as a Yoruba person, Awolowo taught us that our survival in Nigeria as a group depends on ethno-linguistic federalism. These are fundamentals. These are fault lines. Azikwe told the Igbos, for you to become a superpower in Nigeria, ethnic identity must be erased. And if you read the different books, different colonial records, go and read the autobiography of Awolowo, autobiography of Zik, autobiography of Ahmadu Bello. These things were written in black and white. And Zik was very specific that he was not interested in federalism. So, because of these fundamentals, we are the situation where a particular bloc within Nigeria believed that Nigeria should be just like one Tower of Babel, and everybody will just be one happy family. And even the definition of Nigeria along the Wazobia definition, it's hegemonic, it's genocidal, and rather unfortunate. Saying that ethnicities in Nigeria is Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo is very genocidal, because we have over 300 other ethnic nationalities that have been tentatively erased via that federal brigandage at the federal level. And it was because of these constant agitations by the different ethnic minorities, that led to the destruction of the First Republic. And out of the three Wasobias, it has always been the Yoruba people that has always tried to be the savior of the ethnic minorities. The Yoruba people were speaking for the ethnic minorities in the Middle Belt, because we were very instrumental in funding and the creation. In fact, the Yoruba people of Kogi Kwara, the likes of J.P. Olawoyin, J. Baba Olawoyin from Ofa, current day Kwara State, were extremely important in creating the Middle Belt Congress. We were also very, very instrumental in fighting for the rights of the Ijaws, the Cross River, Ogoni, the COR people, the Ogoja people, to have their own region in the First Republic. And many people have actually wondered, why should the Christian-dominated East, led by the Igbos, and the Fulani-dominated North, led by Ahmadu Bello, should have any form of political alliance in the First Republic? Apart from the disdain they both have for the Yorubas and Chief Obafemi Awolowo, because of his progressive politics, anti-feudalism, mass education, protection of ethnic identity within Nigeria, they also hated the fact that Chief Obafemi Awolowo was also advocating for the rights of ethnic minorities to exist and survive as a people. And that's why the East, which was crushing the rights of the Efik, Ibibios, and other ethnic minorities in the South, all of a sudden became the defender of ethnic minorities in the Western region. So while the Igbos ensured that the ethnic minorities in the former Eastern region refused to be given their own region or given their own political independence, they through the NCNC and people like Dennis Osadebe, who was part and parcel of the Igbo State Union, Igbo Federal Union, who was an Igbo nationalist from that area called the Midwest, they played a crucial role in ensuring the balkanization of the Western region. It is not different from what we see today, that we see many so-called fox patriotic, hypocritical patriotic people from the Southeast. When they want to talk about Yoruba issues, they are the ones that know the worst road in Ogun State. They know the worst road in Oyo State. They want to teach us good governance in Lagos State. But when it comes to Igbo land, they become deaf and dumb. They can protect their own their celebrities and political elites that hobnob with the federal government in Abuja. They do not see that. But when it comes to Yoruba leaders or Yoruba people doing the same thing, they will start weaponizing the social media and start creating a kind of a mob-like attack while weaponizing the Nigerian patriotism to regard anybody who identifies with so-called political elites as enemies of Nigeria. So this is the reality we face as a people. And it has always been like that. I would also now properly go into the topic, like real big, go into the topic. I used to use different examples, and a good example I'm going to use as regards to the situation of Nigeria. There has never been anywhere where ethnic identities were erased, indigenous people were erased to create a greater country. So what actually happens? You don't just create, you don't erase other ethnicities and say, oh, we are going to create a Nigeria. You are deceiving yourself. What actually happens is that in a country like Nigeria, just making an example, the Igbos, God forbid, will have the military capacity to erase the Yorubas, to erase the Fulanis, to erase the Hausas, erase the Ijos, and turn every single one of us into a minority in order to create the Nigeria of their dream. The same thing happened. I can give a good example of where such things were used, where genocide was used as a tool of nation building. A good example was in the former USSR. So for USSR to actually survive, they actually created a Russia-dominated USSR. Without the Russian domination of USSR, there would never have been an USSR. So what happened in Russia, what happened in the USSR, for example, in places like the Kazakhstan Republic, in places like Crimea, in places like Ukrainian Republic, in places like the Tajik, all those, even in Azerbaijan, even in Armenia, what majority of the USSR Soviet leaders were doing was that they were exporting, they were uprooting, they were mass migrating Russians, ethnic Russians to be specific, to go and settle down across these non-Russian lands outside the Russian homeland in order to create a united USSR. That's why today, after the collapse of the USSR, there is a big population of Russians in Kazakhstan. There is a big population of Russians in Lithuania. There are big population of Russians in Estonia. Those Russians are most times not indigenous to those places. They were mass migrated to those places in order to create one USSR at all costs. And what has happened was, after the collapse of USSR, it has created eternal wars and eternal pressure, eternal hostility in Eastern Europe and in Central Asia. So that's why you see the problem of Ukraine. The problem of Ukraine was that after USSR was balkanized, close to 30% of the population of the new Ukrainian Republic that was created after 1991, even though was sovereign, independent, and wanted to chart its own course as an independent country, there was a huge Russian population in Ukraine. And this huge Russian population in Ukraine, their politics, their political agenda, their political loyalty has always been loyal to Russia. So when they want to vote, the Russians in Ukraine used to vote for Russian interests. So this is the reality. It's not different from what we have in Yoruba land. The Igbos in Yoruba land don't vote for Nigerian interests. They vote for Igbo interests right in Yoruba land while hiding under one Nigeria. The same thing is happening in Plateau State. What is happening in Plateau State is that in Plateau State, the Fulani settlers in Plateau State vote for Fulani interests, even though they are not indigenous to that place. So this is the problem and this is the reality that we face. Despite all these fundamental differences, We still see Igbo intellectuals like Mogalu advocating for the use of the Kemalist doctrine and Kemalist ideology, which is that the powerful ethnic indigenous in people must be wiped out in order to create one Nigeria. And they are going to be talking about this as if they mean well for Nigeria. I've seen many people that have said it's like maybe they are mentally retarded, or we are just dealing with the people that are not qualified to exist in a multi-ethnic society. I have asked many people, I have challenged many people, why can't we have a Nigeria that looks like Switzerland? Why? Why can't we have a Nigeria that looks like Belgium? Why? Why can't we have a Nigeria that looks like India? India is multi-ethnic and a definition of a form of a successful multi-ethnic country. And unfortunately, the Yoruba society, even though highly Western educated, with a powerful civilization they call their home, they are one of the most politically illiterate society you can have in West Africa, especially the younger generation. Why are we like this? We are like this because we do not know how to practice politics in a proper multi-ethnic country of diverse civilization. You look at the Igbos, they pride themselves in their republicanism. They don't want to bow to anybody, even though they are still the same person creating Izis all across different places outside Igbo land. And they also want to be calling themselves Imperial Majesty. What an irony. And you look at the Fulanis. The Fulanis had conquered a large chunk of that place called the Core North and created a theocratic institutions. These theocratic institutions are fundamentally driven by the Maliki school of Islamic jurisprudence. And they built a civilization because they are conquerors. So they cannot build a political institution that will look like apartheid. And that's why I said the Fulanis are one of the smartest people when it comes to statecraft. If the Fulanis had been able to separate themselves and create a kind of a system that isolated the Hausa people would have revolted. So what did the Fulani do? The Fulani people learned, they looked at what has, especially from the Ottoman Empire, how the Ottoman Turks were able to create used Islam as a cohesive force in creation of the Ottoman Empire. The same thing was done, the use of Christianity as a form of cohesive tool to create the Roman Empire. So what they did was, they erased ethnic identity and imposed Islamic identity. That's why when I see a lot of people that say that the melting pot, that Nigeria should be a melting pot, what exactly do you want to melt? You want to melt ethnic identity. What about the religious identity? In some places in Nigeria, ethnic identity is as important as religious identity. In some places in Nigeria, religious identity is even far more powerful than ethnic identity. For the case of the Yoruba people, how do you unite the Yoruba people that are disparate, diverse, when it comes to religion, into a united political bloc? The only thing that unites us is our ethnicity. The only thing that unites us is our ancestry, Ile-Ife source. The only thing that unites us is because of our linguistic affinity, the linguistic commonality. The only thing that unites us is our commonality as regards to our civilization. That's why the Yoruba people have always said this, and I'll continue to say this. Why do you think the Yoruba people, all of a sudden, after Nigeria since 1960, we've been having bickerings with our Benin cousins? Why? Because the Nigerian politics was toxified. The Nigerian politics was weaponized. The waters of Nigerian politics was poisoned by Nnamdi Azikiwe under NCNC that turned our Benin brothers against us. And everybody started rewriting history. Oduduwa is from us. So even though we all know all of us are from Oduduwa, But we all know there's a commonality in our civilization, which is Oduduwa. So why can't we unite along these civilization lines in order to be able to survive within Nigeria? And so that we can be able, you cannot build prosperity, you cannot build political stability without having a fundamental civilization block. The fundamentals of the society in the core north is built on Islamic theocratic institutions. So in the core north, they are Muslim first. In Yoruba land, we are Yoruba first. So how do you now ask us to replace our ethnic consciousness with religious consciousness? The Igbos can, like we saw in 2023, when it favors them, they can play religious politics and get away with it because they are largely religious homogeneous. Even though we still know, as we saw during the regime of Peter Obi, when he was the governor of Anambra State, where he promoted Catholic supremacy above the other Orthodox and other Pentecostal Christian blocks within Anambra State. And you cannot blame them because just like Sunni Islam, Catholicism also comes with a form of political consciousness. That is why the Yoruba people were in a deep mess, because Pentecostalism breeds individualism. Pentecostalism, oftentimes, the American style of Pentecostalism that unfortunately that has been domesticated in Yoruba land, because Yoruba land is the base of Pentecostalism in the whole of Africa. It breeds individualism. It is based on white culture. It detribalizes, it erases ethnic consciousness. It creates a different clans. The Pentecostals see themselves as a different people. They don't even see themselves. Their loyalty is a different thing entirely. It's even not to their people. But Catholicism is not like that. As a Catholic, you are going to have a form of ethnic consciousness. As a Sunni, you are going to have a form of ethnic consciousness as a Sunni Muslim. So that is what we are currently facing. And we are in this state of comatose. That is why one way or the other, there is a form of a powerful core north, because it is based, and it's an Islamic empire masquerading itself as part and parcel of Nigeria. And you have the Igbos who have been able to use Catholicism, political Christianity, and they could say, oh, we are not bigots. Oh, but when it comes to Christianity, they become Christian first. And that is what they talk about. Why do you think the Igbos were able to create a form of a political alliance? Not based on competency or any other rubbish they are trying to parrot on social media, but it's because they were able to weaponize the Muslim ticket of APC and say that the Middle Belt, the Bible Belt, the Christian bloc of the Middle Belt, and the largely Christian South with the Southeast, and they were able to also penetrate. They penetrated the Southwest, and they were able to draw a lot of our brothers and sisters that were largely Christians into the Christian Brotherhood for that political agenda. So the same thing we also saw. I'm telling you the host. The only same thing they also saw, they also did. So that's why you see that largely most Yoruba obedient are Pentecostals. And they are doing it because they do not have the geopolitical knowledge to survive the politics of Nigeria. It's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves. And unfortunately, the intellectuals, the political class, give me 7 more minutes because I started the lecture late. The political intellectuals in Yoruba land actually we do not have the political class again in Yoruba land. Between 1993 to 2007, the entire political class in Yoruba land were basically wiped out. The best of our political intellectual class were wiped out. I have to tell you the truth. The Igbos intellectuals have always been left intact within Nigeria. During the first purge, I call it the first purge, because the 1966 coup was a purge of the political class of the West, of the Midwest, and the North, by soldiers mostly of Igbo extraction. It's the bitter truth. With some, especially some Yoruba soldiers who thought they were revolutionaries. Just we say where we had some Igbo, we have some Yoruba political, Yoruba obedient currently, who think they wanted, what they are trying to save Nigeria, and they are just another just willing tools of destruction of themselves and their people. So we have this situation. So ever since the purge and the wiping out of the political class of the core North by the Ifeanyi Eziogu-led coup of 1966, the Fulani, Hausa Fulanis have learned their lesson and they said never again. So since then, their political class have been left intact. It doesn't matter, maybe under different military coup, different democratic dispensation. They always die peaceful death. The same thing with the Igbos. The Igbos intellectuals were not killed in the First Republic. Even after the Civil War, they still managed to survive. Even Ojukwu survived the Civil War, of all people. So in the Second Republic, the Igbo intellectuals did not go to prison. They were not humiliated. They were not harassed like the Yoruba political intellectuals. Let's talk about the Third Republic, when almost the entire political class in Yoruba land were assassinated, massacred, thrown into prison. And many of our people had to flee for their lives. Even the president of Nigeria currently was also sent into exile. I know many of our political leaders, many of our intellectuals, the best brains the Yoruba land can ever have. Many of them went to America, many of them went to London. Till date, they did not come back home to Nigeria. Many of them died abroad. In fact, I remember listening to one of our leaders then. He said it was a common thing to see professors from University of Ibadan, professors from Obafemi Awolowo University, people that ran for their lives from Abacha, to see them working as security officers at McDonald's, at Sainsbury, in different places in the Western world, because they fled for their lives to be able to survive. It is a situation of things. So the political, and we saw between 1999 to 2007, firstly, it was the destruction of the Alliance for Democracy. The Alliance for Democracy was nothing but a reincarnation of the Action Group. The creation, the Alliance for Democracy, was a threat to the core North and to the East. And thankfully, they had someone like Obasanjo that did a good job for them. Alliance for Democracy was destroyed. Afenifere was Ohanified, and it became Ohanifere in the name of national unity. And miscreants like Dele Farotimi can openly come out and say Afenifere does not speak for the Yoruba people. The question you ask yourselves, if Afenifere does not speak for the Yoruba people, which Yoruba organizations, which Yoruba socio-cultural class now speaks for the Yoruba people? Ohaneze speaks for the Igbos. Arewa Consultative Forum speaks for the Hausa Fulanis. Northern Elders Forum speaks for the Hausa Fulanis. The Miyetti Allah speaks for the Fulanis. Tabita Pulaku speaks for the Fulanis. Mark Ban speaks for the Fulanis. The Middle Belt Consultative Forum speaks for the Middle Belt people. PANDEF speaks for the people of Niger Delta. The IYC speaks for the Jos. Now tell me, which organization speaks for the Yoruba people? They don't even want us to have any form of forum, any form of organization where we can be able to mount resistance and have a pan-Yoruba agenda within Nigeria, just like every other person is doing. It pains me to my heart. And sometimes I wonder what is going on. And I must tell you, the Yoruba people might be 100 million, 200 million people. The intellectual class in Yoruba land is not up to 0.5%. The political class might be 10% of the population, but the real intellectual class are not up to 0.5% of the Yoruba population. And let me also tell you, the best brains of the Yoruba people are no longer in Nigeria. It's not abroad. That's why you see that most of the intellectuals, I'm talking about the great intellectuals, that actually speaks for the Yoruba people are now coming, are mostly voiced from abroad. What has happened to the voice of the people back home? Because it is the bitter truth. Our people, all of us have become exiled abroad. And we can no longer even fight for our people. We can no longer even speak for our people. And that is why it is absolute madness for anybody to be saying Nigeria should be a melting pot. I cannot be able to finish this lecture today. Hopefully we'll continue tomorrow. Because by tomorrow, I'm going to tell you what melting pot is all about in the real sense of it. I'm going to cite examples. I'm going to give different examples of what has happened. I'll talk about Sudan. I'll talk about India. The India before it was balkanized into 3 countries. I'll talk about those places. And those are the reasons, hopefully, we are going to understand why some people are pushing for a melting pot in Nigeria. Nigeria is a clash of civilization. Nigeria, that's why when I saw a particular individual who calls himself Dr. Mo today, he said by 2075, he's looking for a Nigeria where the Igbos should be the governor of Lagos. Now, that's how you know that these people are not just genocidal, they are plain lunatics. Because you have to ask this question, why was state created in Nigeria? Why were states created in Nigeria? States were created in Nigeria in order to make indigenous people to be able to protect their indigenous land. I've asked this question, why do the Igbos want another second civil war in Nigeria? Why? Why? People like Dr. Mo is just an Idoma man. I work for Peter Obi. He doesn't have the mental capacity to understand what he's using. Hiding behind proxies like Mo, Farotimi, Rufai, and all those other miscreants to be pushing Azikwe's ideology in 2025 will lead to another bloodshed in Nigeria. If all of us could resist Ruga by Buhari, that Ruga, no matter how you want to call it, by saying you want to solve the killings. No, we know it's an expansionist drive by the Fulanis to create secular colonies all across Nigeria. You don't grab the lands of indigenous people, change demography, and saying that is your own panacea to lands. The land is an identity of a people. That is what the greatest insult Yoruba people has ever had, is for Igbos to be calling Lagos no man's land. It's a genocidal statement. So Nigeria cannot even exist when there is no mutual respect. Nigeria cannot achieve its identity, its future, when there is no mutual understanding of why we need to survive as a people. So unity is not, you cannot parrot, you cannot be continuing to talk about unity. It doesn't work that way. Unity is negotiated, or you use guns and bullets, just like they did in USSR to achieve it. That's why I'm more surprised. The people that are currently praising Burkina Faso leader, Traore, and they are asking for military coup. We know the people that are currently doing that. The Connaughts, they did that because they lost out of power. During the protests they did in last year, they were protesting, they were advocating and asking for how they were going to take over using military expansionism, because they've been the biggest beneficiary of military junta in Nigeria. Since 1970, most military governments in Nigeria was a form of Arewa supremacy over the rest of us. Go and read about the book written by Nigerian Power and Politics by Professor Toyin Falola. These things were written in black and white. This is not about hate. But because a lot of our people, especially the young Yorubas, are not politically educated, they are politically illiterate. They actually do not actually understand what is happening again in Nigeria. And that's why they could be manipulated by another Wasobia group. And they will now become the weapon fashioned against themselves. It's even very crazy that the intellect, the socio-cultural, the socio-political space in Yoruba land has even become anti-intellectual. And I'm going to wrap up with this. The states in Nigeria, one of the things that Gowon did for ethnic minorities in Nigeria was the balkanization of the regions for its own selfish reason, because that was not what as Awolowo asked him to do. Awolowo asked him, we don't need 36 states. Create a Yoruba state. What we need is a United States of Nigeria. Just like you have in Switzerland, just like you have in Belgium. Not this madness. Create a Yoruba state. Create a chief state. But he didn't do that. He broke everybody up, not thinking he was going to also destroy the Wazobias. That's why sometimes I've told my people, I respect the right of ethnic minorities to survive, but we must not make the mistake of our law. We are not the messiah of anybody. Let the ethnic minorities also fight for their own survival. We are not going to go to prison for anybody again in Nigeria. Because the Yoruba people went to prison. Our leaders went to prison for the survival of the ethnic minorities in the First Republic. Only for many of them not to understand the sacrifices of our people for their own survival, insulting us in 2023 elections. It is unforgivable. Yoruba people must learn to keep grudges. And like I said, the Yoruba political class, the Yoruba intellectual class, the Yoruba socio-political class, socio-cultural class, the Yoruba traditional class is now anti-intellectual. If you are too intellectual, then you become their enemy. Everything they think about is wealth, 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 and winning elections. They don't even understand what needs to be done. Unlike what we had very early 1999, what we had in the Second Republic, unlike what we had in the First Republic, where there was a synergy, there was a synchronization, there was a direct proportionality between the intellectual class, the technocratic class, and the socio-political class, and the traditional class. That is why Yoruba land was Yoruba land. If you do not have this synergy, we are going to build red line, blue line, yellow line, and some uncivilized people are going to take it over and destroy it by installing Chinedu Gbadebo on our head and destroy our lives. It's a bit the truth. I saw for the first time someone like Sanwo-Olu saying Yoruba land. When he was greeting Fashionati, we are happy. That's why persecution, attack is one of the things that unites a people. War, invasions, unite a people for a common cause. The future of Nigeria is not melting pot. The future of Nigeria is ethno-linguistically federated space. And this is what Chief Obafemi Awolowo handed over to us. We are going to mobilize. We are going to organize. We are going to push. We are going to advocate for us to achieve this. Thank you once again, brothers and sisters, for participating in Nationalism Hour. We'll meet tomorrow. And by handing over to the host, God bless you all. For those of you that came today, ẹ ṣé púpọ̀.
And that wraps up another powerful episode of Nationalism Hour on the Think Yoruba First podcast. Remember, our past is our foundation, but our future is in our hands. Let's keep pushing the vision, living the values, and standing proudly as children of Oduduwa. Until next time, stay rooted, stay proud, and always think Yoruba first. Oòduà gbè wá o.